Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope you all had a great week. Happy Friday. I wish I were born a fish. I will be scuba diving for the rest of my life. My first open water dive last Sunday was one of the best experiences I've ever had the opportunity to take part in. I found a boat, a big ass snapping turtle, a vape, and that's only a random lake in New Hampshire. It can literally only get cooler from here. I've already started looking at these crazy dive sites in Iceland, of all places. I truly don't mean to brag. I'm simply just that much more excited for the future. It was so cool. And now with my extensive scuba dive training, I'm almost certain Gabe Watson is responsible for the death of his wife, Tina. If you had listened to last week's episode, I honestly can't see any reason for her to stop breathing without interference from another person. That is my opinion, zero fact. Speaking of opinions, the movie Mortal Engines is highly underrated. I watched it for the first time last week. Why is it so good? I mean, I'm 26 and I love it, this fantasy movie. And why isn't there a sequel yet? This extraordinary world in which cities the size of London travel across the land on wheels, devouring smaller cities in its path. It made me feel like I was 11 watching Transformers for the first time. Now that I think of it, if Transformers were real, I'm sure we'd have plenty of car murders to delve into. But no, today's story is much closer to home. The worst part about this case, it feels extremely solvable. Today, I bring you the disappearance of Daniel Robinson. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. My sources for today come from an NPR article, Wikipedia, WestValleyView.com, AZ Central, CBS News. There's a lot of them, and the rest I'll put down below. Over the last however many years, honestly, I wrote 4 to 5, but it's been longer than that. The United States has been rocked by shocking murders and missing persons cases of young adults and college students alike. It is wonderful to see some of these cases grasp the nation until their resolution. However, for every case with immense coverage, another case falls by the wayside. I'd like to start with a short snippet from the 2021 NPR article written by Rachel Treisman, which sort of encapsulates this problem as a whole. Quote, there has been a national focus over the last few days on the unfolding story of Gabby Petito, the 22-year-old woman whose death was ruled a homicide on Tuesday, nearly a month after she was last seen on a cross-country road trip with her now missing boyfriend. Again, this is from 2021, so we do know what happened. Media coverage of the case is intense and, as some people have pointed out, disproportionate to the kind of attention typically given to missing Indigenous women and people of color. The families of 2 black men who went missing in recent weeks and months, Jelani Day and Daniel Robinson, are drawing attention to this disparity and pleading for the public's help in finding answers. 25-year-old Illinois State University graduate student and aspiring doctor Jelani Day was last seen in Illinois in August. He was reported missing by his family and a faculty member on August 25th. His family could not reach him after they spoke on the evening of August 23rd, and he was last seen on surveillance video entering a retail store in Bloomington on the morning of August 24th. Police located his car in a wooded area near the Illinois Valley YMCA in Peru on August 26th with the clothing he was last seen wearing left inside. Just over a week later, on September 4th, a team of police, fire, and rescue officials found, quote, an unidentified body just off the south bank of the Illinois River. Jelani Day's body was identified 1 month after this grad student went missing. Bloomington police said that the following day, the LaSalle County Coroner's Office had begun an investigation into the circumstances surrounding this person's death, and that identification, or proper identification, could take several days or weeks. Quote, "We ask that the people refrain from speculation as the investigation remains ongoing and could take considerable time." Carmen Bolden Day, Day's mother, told member station WGLT that the discovery of the body has seemingly brought her son's case to a standstill. She said state police collected DNA samples from her family members on September 6th, but was told that the police lab doesn't have the resources needed to process the samples. She also said that the Bloomington PD has been able to devote only one detective to the case, asking, "Once he stops, does that mean we stop looking for answers entirely?" Bolden Day has spoken out on social media and in interviews about the differences between her son's case and that of Petito, noting at one point that Gabby's face was, quote, "plastered everywhere and the FBI got involved after she had been missing for 2 days. But Day didn't get the same attention after being missing for longer." As she told the news station, she's not arguing that Petito deserves less, but that her son Day deserves more. "I want them to look for my child like they're looking for her," she said tearfully in a local TV interview. "He is not a nobody, he is a somebody, and I want him to come home. I want them to give my son the same attention," end quote. The article goes on briefly to talk about Daniel Robinson's disappearance, which we will get right into, but I believe that to be the key takeaway. Not that one person's case deserves more attention, but that they all receive the same support and scale of investigation. Daniel Robinson was born in January of 1997 without his lower right arm or hand. However, this wouldn't stop him from participating in sports and excelling in academics, or academia. He graduated from the College of Charleston in South Carolina in 2017 with an undergraduate degree in geology. After graduation, he relocated to Arizona where he found work as a hydrogeologist. A hydrogeologist is a person who studies the ways that groundwater, or hydro, moves through the soil and the rock of the earth. Geology, end quote. He first lived in Tempe, but would quickly move into the Phoenix area in 2019. Here, Daniel was employed by the environmental engineering company Matrix New World. Quote, "He oversaw many sites in remote desert locations, often working in extreme conditions and traveling long distances to work on projects," end quote. What would end up being his final work site was located in Buckeye, Arizona, the westernmost suburb of Phoenix. Daniel Robinson was last seen by a coworker leaving his site in Buckeye near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road, just after 9 a.m. on June 23rd of 2021. He was driving a 2017 bluish-gray Jeep Renegade headed west towards the desert. Right off the bat, he's leaving his work site early in the morning. I'm not sure when he arrived, but 9 a.m. seems like a quick day. On top of that, he headed into the desert, away from Phoenix. I'm not familiar with this area, but with a quick Google Maps search, it appears there doesn't seem to be hardly anything west of Buckeye. Pure desert. Daniel's father, David, was extremely close to his son, and when he stopped returning any phone calls or texts, he knew something went wrong. He reported Daniel missing that evening on 7 p.m. of June 23rd. According to the Buckeye Police Department website, he was entered into the missing persons database the very same night. The next day, investigators performed a ground search of the area, attempted to ping his cell phone, and looked for his car, all without success. Then, they checked Daniel's apartment. According to Wikipedia, after his disappearance, someone went into Daniel Robinson's apartment, ransacked his closet, and accessed his laptop. Robinson's family convinced the police department to do forensic work on all of Daniel's electronics, including his personal computer and gaming system. The result of all that work indicated that someone had been looking at Daniel's search history and, quote, just fooling around on the computer, end quote. Yeah, just a little post-missing person tomfoolery. Investigators wouldn't get their next lead until July 19th. Quote, a rancher found his Jeep rolled over on its side in a ravine on his property. The airbags deployed, and evidence in the vehicle indicated that the driver was wearing a seatbelt at the time of the crash. Several personal items of Robinson's were found within the vehicle, such as his cell phone, wallet, keys, and clothes. But no Daniel. And maybe even worse, no sign of Daniel. No note, car gone, bed empty, you could have been killed. Or worse, expelled. The rancher who found Robinson's car had been in the area on July 17th, 2 days prior, as he searched for some of his cattle, and he asserted that Robinson's car was not in that ravine until he returned on July 19th. Thus, his family does not believe that Daniel's car was in the ravine for 30 days since the time of his disappearance, end quote. The Jeep was found roughly 3 to 4 miles southwest of the Buckeye job site. So whatever happened in that time frame, the car, at least, didn't make it that far. According to Wikipedia, after the discovery of the Jeep, Robinson's family hired Jeff McGrath, an accident reconstructionist and private investigator for 3 Laws Recon. McGrath suggested that the accident scene had been staged. He stated that after the airbags were deployed, the ignition was turned over 46 more times, and that there was an additional 11 miles or 18 kilometers on the car that registered after the crash. Private investigator McGrath also noted that there was red paint on Robinson's Jeep that had been transferred from another vehicle, which suggested a collision prior to when the Jeep came to rest. In the ravine, that is. Now, this case is already a bamboozling, confusing mess that smells of foul play, at least to me. But the further police dig, the stranger it gets. According to West Valley View News, friends, colleagues, and family members say that the 24-year-old field geologist Daniel was acting odd before he went missing in the desert near Buckeye. A coworker reported that Daniel, quote, stared off into the distance and discussed topics unrelated to the worksite. According to one coworker named Kenneth, Daniel asked, "Do you want to go home? Do you want to go back to Phoenix?" And after checking his weather app to see if it was going to rain, he drove south down a dirt road. Kenneth ultimately reported no behavior or statements from Daniel that suggested he was hallucinating, that he was incoherent, or was even having some kind of mental health issue, the report said. Additionally, Kenneth advised Daniel did not make any direct or indirect suicidal statements or actions, end quote. Apparently he was just acting odd. Investigators in October of 2021 announced that Robinson had been texting a woman named Caitlin. He met her while delivering for Instacart and was reportedly invited inside, where he exchanged numbers with her. Quote, she and her friend, who admit that they were drunk, invited him to stay and hang out. Daniel accidentally left a personal item at her house and later texted to see if he could retrieve it. Out of town, Caitlin told him to wait until she returned. However, Daniel's unannounced visits were captured on her security footage, and she last heard from him on June 22nd of 2021, one day before he disappeared. Quote, Caitlin said Daniel then began to become very creepy, sending her a text message of a heart emoji and a text message saying that he loved her. A day later, he texted her again saying that he was outside of her home. She felt concerned and unsure why Daniel would fall in love with her because she said that she didn't lead him on. The last thing he texted her was, quote, the world can get better, but I'll have to take all the time I can, or we can, whatever to name it. I'll either see you again or never see you again, end quote. That text doesn't make sense. I'll have to take all the time I can or we can, whatever to name it. Name what? You know? What are we naming, Daniel? The article continues, also on June 22nd of 2021, a Waffle House server told police that Daniel seemed, quote, skittish and out of it while he was dining there. Later the same day, Daniel sent a text to his sister, Davisha, saying, quote, it's an emergency. She texted back and even called him, but never received a response. This is when the frustrations start to run high. Police are now doubting any foul play and instead asserting that Daniel had a mental break and left on his own accord. to which Daniel's family entirely denies. They say this behavior contradicts the outgoing, outspoken, kind, and energetic young man they've watched grow up. This is the only instance in Daniel's life that his family, friends, and coworkers remember him being even just a little bit weird or off-putting. Besides that, he's had seemingly a great track record, so it sucks that the police are quick to dismiss any foul play simply because of some strange behavior, albeit very strange. In November of that fall, investigators found a set of human remains while searching for Daniel, but unfortunately, this did not match his DNA profile. David Robinson, the father, has been critical of the effort put into locating his son by local law enforcement, particularly the Buckeye Police, claiming that he has done more in attempting to locate his son than law enforcement has. Quote, David Robinson and his private investigator, Jeff McGrath, assert that the Buckeye Police used insufficient investigative methods to rule out foul play. David also noted irregularities in the official Buckeye Police timeline of the case. This included a statement by Daniel's coworker about the events of the morning of his disappearance, which differed from what the initial Buckeye officer on the case had stated, end quote. So, what happened to Daniel? Has a horrible deed been committed in the desert, or did Daniel choose to leave his life behind? It seems nobody can agree. The police have appeared to have given up, happy with the assumption Daniel left on his own. And that is an assumption. We still have zero body. And if he did leave on his own accord, he left everything, phone, wallet, car, ID, basically everything he needed to survive. But his father is still fighting for answers and justice, living full-time in Arizona, away from his South Carolina home until he finds his son, no matter the conclusion. How can investigators be okay with this non-answer, a shit conclusion? If the Buckeye Police Department truly believes Daniel disappeared intentionally, they have yet to produce any hard evidence backing this theory, or even motivation to do so. It's sickening how they simply dismiss him. The very last update Buckeye Police Department posted was in November of 2021, and since then it appears they've done fuck all. Currently, Daniel Robinson is still missing, and his family still waiting for answers. His father has set up a website in honor of finding Daniel, and if this case interests you, I recommend checking that out. He's still asking for help, volunteers and searches, you name it. And that, my friends, is the extremely frustrating and still unsolved case of Daniel Robinson. I have a few theories or areas of question, I suppose, rather. Okay, for a minute, let's assume he did leave voluntarily. Could it have been Daniel himself who ransacked his room? If he had decided to leave on a whim, it's possible he tore apart his room in a rush to leave. But how do you explain his Jeep showing up 1 month later, only 3 miles from where he was last seen? I simply cannot think of a single rational explanation as to why his Jeep wasn't in the ravine, and then all of a sudden it was. That smells like somebody dumping evidence to me. Unless, for some reason, the rancher was involved, and he was lying about what day the Jeep showed up. But that's a stretch. And then the other wild theory I have is that there was red paint on his blue-gray Jeep. Maybe he was just in a fluke car accident, and somebody tried to hide the evidence. A hit-and-run type situation. But again, huge stretch. I don't know. I feel like I have to believe it's foul play. But what about you? Do you see something I don't? For everyone's sake, I hope we find out soon. Thank you all again for taking the time out of your day to listen in. It means the world. And if you'd like, stick around for a bonus story after the music. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. We're going at it tonight. Tonight. There's a party on the rooftop, top of the world. Tonight. I can't bring myself to read it again, but I did come across a heart-wrenching article interviewing the Sandy Hook survivors years later. This year, they are graduating and becoming adults, which is crazy to think that it's been that long. These young adults reflect on the many school shootings since, their own survivor's guilt, and how they've been able to move forward while honoring their missing friends. It's a wonderful article, but quite emotional. So instead, DC man arrested in woman's cold case murder. Victim's daughter reveals suspect is her ex-boyfriend. Written by Stephen Smith. Quote, a man has been arrested 23 years after a woman was found dead in her suburban DC home. And in an unexpected twist, the victim's daughter revealed that she had once dated the suspect. Eugene Theodore Gligor, I think I'm saying those right, who's 44, was arrested by the U.S. Marshals Task Force in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday in the 2001 death of Leslie Prier. Gligor was charged with first-degree murder and was being held at the D.C. jail pending an extradition request from Maryland authorities. On May 2, 2001, a colleague went to check on Prier after she failed to show up to work. The coworker found blood in the foyer of her Maryland home and called police, who later found Prier's body in an upstairs bedroom. Her death was ruled a homicide. With no leads, Prier's murder case went cold. In 2022, police offered a $10,000 reward for anyone with information that would lead to an arrest. Later that year, DNA evidence recovered from blood at the crime scene was submitted to a lab for forensic genetic genealogical analysis. Detectives were ultimately able to identify Gligor as a potential suspect. On June 9th, detectives collected DNA evidence belonging to Gligor and compared it to the DNA recovered from the crime scene. His DNA matched the crime scene DNA. A warrant for his arrest was obtained Saturday, and he was taken into custody. Lauren Prier, the victim's daughter, told WTTG-TV that Gligor was her ex-boyfriend, saying that they lived in the same neighborhood and began dating when she was 15. It's been a hell of a day, she told the station. She even said in the interview that she bumped into Gligor at a restaurant in D.C. last year. He didn't seem weird, but how can you look somebody in the eye knowing that you committed this crime and act like nothing happened? It's pretty unreal. When asked if Gligor was ever considered a person of interest by the family, Lauren Prier told the station, no, not at all, end quote. My goodness, the world we live in, guys. Absolutely cuckoo bananas. Well, I think that'll about do it for today. Thank you all once again for listening. I do truly appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Shmonday. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you. What are you wearing, Pookie? These are my Steve Madden shoes, my Steve Madden skirt, and my, looking so good, Pookie. What about you, Mama Pookie? Mama Pookie stole the show over here. Oh, I love you, Mama Pookie. God damn it.